8,525.27 feet. That is Lake Powell right now. This morning, July 5th, 2026, down another 0.22 feet since yesterday, sitting 174.73 feet below where this reservoir should be at full pool. But today I do not want to start with this week's numbers. I want to start with a decade. 10 years ago, on this exact holiday, Lake Powell was sitting 92 feet higher than it is right now. 92 feet. That is roughly the height of an 8-story building. Gone not in a single catastrophic event, not in one failed policy decision. Just slowly, steadily, one ordinary summer at a time, until you look back across a decade and the number stops you cold. And here is the thing about that 92 feet that I have not talked about before. Most people hear a number like that and think about drinking water, about agriculture, about cities running dry. All of that matters. But there is a completely different way to look at what that missing 92 feet actually represents. And when you see it this way, it changes everything about how you understand what is at stake. Here is what is keeping me up at night. Water professionals and economists have a term they are using more and more in 2026. They call it the new blue angle. And the idea behind it is deceptively simple. For over a century, the American West treated the Colorado River as a commodity, something to be pumped out, diverted, extracted. The entire legal and political framework was built around one question: how much can we take? The new blue angle asks a completely different question. What is the water worth while it is still sitting right here, inside this reservoir, at elevation? And the answer is something most people have never considered. That 92 feet of water that disappeared from Lake Powell over the past decade was not just water. It was weight. It was pressure. It was what physicists call hydraulic head, the force created by the depth of the water column pressing down against the dam's intake tubes. And that pressure is what drives the turbines at Glen Canyon Dam. The deeper the water, the greater the pressure, the more electricity the dam can generate. Think about what that actually means. Lake Powell at full pool is essentially a massive gravity-fed battery, one of the largest clean energy storage systems ever built by human beings. The water sitting in that reservoir is not idle. It is stored electricity, waiting to be released at the exact moment the grid needs it most. Unlike solar panels that go dark at night, unlike wind turbines that stop when the air is still, hydropower can go from zero to full output in minutes. When a heat wave slams the southwest and millions of air conditioners switch on simultaneously, Glen Canyon Dam is what keeps the grid from collapsing. And here is the part that makes me genuinely angry. Every foot of water that leaves this reservoir to irrigate water-intensive crops and the desert crops that in some cases are shipped overseas is a foot of elevation we are trading away. We are converting irreplaceable, emission-free, instantly dispatchable, clean electricity into alfalfa, into cotton, into livestock feed. We are draining one of the most valuable energy assets in the western United States to grow low-value commodities in the middle of a desert during a permanent aridification event. And the irony is brutal. When the dam cannot produce its baseline electricity because the water is gone, the utilities buy replacement power from natural gas plants. So we are not just losing clean energy, we are actively replacing it with the fossil fuel emissions that are warming the atmosphere and evaporating the snowpack that feeds this very reservoir. The lake is helping to drain itself. Now let me tell you about something happening downstream that almost nobody is covering. And this one directly affects one of the most economically valuable landscapes in the entire country, the Grand Canyon. For 50 years, Glen Canyon Dam controlled the downstream environment of the Grand Canyon by releasing cold, deep water drawn from the bottom of a full reservoir. That cold water was the foundation of the entire aquatic ecosystem inside the canyon. Native fish species like the humpback chub evolved over thousands of years to survive in those specific cold water conditions. They are extraordinarily sensitive to temperature, They are extraordinarily sensitive to dissolved oxygen levels. But here is what is happening right now that nobody is talking about. Because Lake Powell has dropped so severely, the intake tubes at Glen Canyon Dam are no longer pulling from the cold, deep layers of the reservoir. They are pulling from the shallow, sun-baked surface water. That surface water is warm. And warm water holds less dissolved oxygen dramatically. When that warm, oxygen-depleted water gets flushed through the turbines and released into the Grand Canyon, it creates what scientists are calling an invisible biological shockwave downstream. The humpback chub is suffocating. They are thermally stressed, and simultaneously, that warmer water is acting as an open invitation for a predator that has no business being inside the Grand Canyon at all: the smallmouth bass. These non-native fish thrive in warmer temperatures. And because they can now physically survive in water flowing through the dam, they are moving downstream into the canyon and devouring the native species that took millennia to evolve there. The Grand Canyon's river ecosystem drives over $1 billion annually in tourism, guided river trips, and recreation across northern Arizona. Rural communities throughout the region depend on that economy. The depletion of Lake Powell is not just a crisis for the cities drawing water from the Colorado River. It is systematically dismantling a downstream economic engine that most people never connect to a water level gauge in Utah. Here is the policy response that I think deserves serious attention, because it flips the entire conversation on its head. Some economists and water researchers are now proposing that agricultural water rights holders be compensated not for the water they use, but for the water they choose to leave in the river. Direct payments to farming operations that voluntarily reduce their consumption and allow that water to stay in Lake Powell, where it generates hydropower, sustains the downstream ecology, and prevents the billion-dollar tourism economy of the Grand Canyon from collapsing entirely. Instead of paying farmers for crops, pay them for elevation, for pressure, for gravity, for the clean energy stored in every foot of water that stays exactly where it is. That idea has not made it into law yet. The negotiations are still stalled, the compact is still expiring, and the gauge this morning still reads 3,525.27 feet, 92 feet below where it stood on this holiday a decade ago. I will keep watching this number every single day and bring you what it actually means. If this gave you something to think about, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this channel reach the people who need to understand what is happening out here. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an update. And share this with someone who lives anywhere along the Colorado River corridor, because this story is moving fast, and most people are still not watching. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And what do you think should water districts be paid to leave water in the reservoir? I will see you at the next one. Stay sharp out there.